Do you have a driver that you're hitting too high or too low? Well, before you start looking at complicated, expensive, or time-consuming solutions, I'd suggest you look at this. Hi everyone, it's AJ, the Mobile Club Maker. Thanks for watching this video. You know, I see all the time people asking questions about hitting their driver too high or hitting their driver too low. And there's a vast array of options out there as far as what you can do to try and change that. Be it adjusting the hosel on an adjustable hosel driver, to changing out the head, to changing out the shaft to something with a different bend profile, to changing the weight or the swing weight, to getting lessons. You know, all of these options could change that. However, in many cases, they're going to be expensive, they're going to be time consuming, or they're going to be just difficult. So I'm going to suggest someplace different that you start if you're hitting the ball too high or too low. And that's looking at your tee height. More specifically, talking about looking at where on the face you're making contact. How high on the driver face are you making contact? Well, why does that matter? Well, it comes down to bulge and roll, more specifically roll, that being the convex curvature of the face, and it can have a pretty dramatic impact. So the first thing you probably need to do is figure out where on the face you're hitting it. Now there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Some of them would involve getting on a launch monitor, a TrackMan, or a GC Quad, and they can tell you where on the face you're making contact. And those are perfectly good options, but I've got a few here that are super simple, super cheap, and every bit as accurate. And you can do them with things you probably already have in your home. So the first would be, if you have impact stickers, these little pressure sensitive stickers that you can stick on the face of your club, perfect. You put them on the face, you hit a few balls, they show where you're making contact on the face. What if you don't have those and you're thinking, well, I want to find out right now what I'm doing with my driver? Well, guess what? You can do the same thing with masking tape. Take some masking tape, put it across the face, just like the stickers, and you'll be able to see when you hit the ball where it's impacting the masking tape. Say you don't have any masking tape. Well, foot spray powder. Foot spray powder always works in a pinch. It's not just for stinky feet, it also tells you where on the club face you're making contact. Spray some of this on the face of your driver, go hit some balls. Again, you'll see the impact marks on your face and you can figure out how high or low you're hitting it on the face. You don't have tape, you don't have stinky feet, and you have the foot spray? Well, a dry erase marker or a washable marker also works. Take this, put some little dots on the back of some golf balls, just 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch in size. Hit some balls. That mark will show up on your driver face. Again, it'll tell you how high or how low you're hitting it on the face. So now that you know where on the face you're hitting it, well, we're going to look at why that's important. And for that, we're going to go over to the Loft and Lie Machine. I've got my driver set up here in the Loft Lie Machine, set up with a square face. We're going to take a couple measurements and just see what happens when we move around the face. So we're going to start off with basically a center impact, taking our measurement right from the middle of the face. We'll slide our gauge up, put it up against the head, and what do we get here? Well, you can see we're sitting there basically right at about 9 degrees, maybe just a shade below 9 degrees. For this, we'll just call it 9 degrees though. Now let's say maybe your impact's a little high. Maybe you're a 1/4 inch above what is the center of this driver. So we can adjust our little knob here, bring it up a 1/4 inch. Let's see where we are, a little bit higher. Let's see where we are here. So now we've moved it a 1/4 inch up, and as you can see, we've gone from what was 9 degree to now basically about 10.5 degree, maybe 10.6, something like that. We'll just say 10.5 for simplicity's sake. Likewise, now let's say you hit it a 1/4 inch below. Well, we'll take this and we'll bring it all the way back down. A 1/4 of an inch below the center line. And see what we get there. Let's see, that just a shade lower down. What is that? That looks like it's actually still just a shade too high. There we go. All right. Now, if we look at it again, here we see, what is that? 7.5 degrees. So as you can see, as we move around the face, I mean, we only moved it around a 1/2 inch high to low, but we got a 3-degree change in our loft from that. Obviously, if we move it around even more than that, moved it around an inch, we'd have an even bigger variety of lofts. But I think this shows you just how much of an impact that slight variation in face impact can have. I think a lot of people, you know, they think of a driver and just think of it having a completely flat face. It's just sort of, you know, you don't really see the bulge and roll so much when you look down on it, so you don't really think about it. But as we've shown here, it can have a very dramatic impact. Again, we're talking for every 1/4 inch we moved around this face, we saw a 1.5 degree change in the loft. And I've measured some other drivers too, different brands, and they all basically fall into this same range where you're getting that 1/4 inch change in height adds up to about a 1.5 degree change in loft. So it's not just, you know, brand X, it's basically all the brands. They all have a similar amount of roll to them to give you these sort of numbers. Now I realize that, you know, this is not going to be the solution for everyone, obviously. There'll be plenty of people out there who are making center contact on the face and still hitting it too high or too low. But I think it just makes sense to at least look at your impact position before moving on to some of these other solutions. I mean, we're talking about a handful of golf balls and some foot spray or a dry erase marker or some masking tape. Very simple, inexpensive way to figure out if this is the problem. If it is, great, you've just solved it with minimal effort, cost, and time. If it isn't, well, no big loss. It was cheap and it was quick. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it got you thinking a little more about bulge and roll and how that influences the loft. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. And until we see each other next time, keep it in the short grass. Thanks.